Hey guys, this is Hetu and welcome back to etlqalabs. So today we will take up these important questions that I have received over emails, over chat, over comments on the channel. I thought that I will just club all of them together and then we will do this video so that you have all these questions at one place, and whenever you are going for interview, I think it will be very helpful for you to just uh, take a look at this video, right? And these are some of the questions I think which are I think real time, right? So this is more of questions where actually interviewer wanted to know whether you have really worked on the projects or not, right? So that is the reason I thought that I will take up these questions and make sure it reaches to you guys, right? All right. So let's start with this question. And before that, guys, I think I just have one ask from you, if you can do it. Uh, on these videos, I'm not getting a lot of likes and comments, right? At least likes I'm expecting. Or if you don't like, just do it, dislike as well. I'm okay with this because then I will come to know what I need to improve, right, on this video, because the whole purpose of this channel is to give you give you the pure knowledge, right, which can help you, right, in your interviews. So that's the whole thing, and I really sincerely I expect you guys to at least, if you like the video, it is helping a bit of also in your upskilling knowledge or your interview preparation of your interview, then just like it. It gives you a lot of motivation to me. Yeah, believe me, right? So that's a one thing. All right, so let's start then with this video, and I hope that these are the setup questions which are going to be really very helpful for you. All right, so the let's go through the question, and then we will go one by one all of this question, and we'll try to see the possible answers, right? So first question is, if you have 20 GB of data inside an Excel file, how do you perform data validation, right? This means it says that you have a flat file, a Excel file, or CSV file, any kind of file, which is having 20 gigabytes of data, which is huge data, right? Which, and then how do you perform the validation? So um, why this is very special question is because it is talking about the scale of the data. 20 GB of data is a huge amount of data which is not possible to open up on your Windows. If you want to open up this Excel file, your RAM will not support it to open on your desktop, right? So that is the reason this question is important. And the interviewer wanted to know, like, how do you handle this kind of thing? So until you handle this kind of things in your project or you are aware of it, you will not be able to answer, right? Uh, the obvious mistake that candidate is going to make is that the candidate is going to say that, okay, well, I will open that file, click on that particular Excel file, then open it, and then check different rules whether they are applied or not, right? That is the very basic answer, which is probably not suitable for this kind of scale of data. Okay, what we have to do is, so this is the first question. Let's go to the second question. Second question is very popular, and many of you have asked these questions over channel, over email, and everybody. Okay, so this says, if you have millions of data, uh, million rows of data, right? How would you validate the ETL test? Okay, this is again very similar. Okay, but then the first one is basically talking about something about the validation, right? Validation on specifically on the Excel file. The second one is basically again similar question, but this is talking about the millions of rows. How do you validate, right? So this can be, passing through from source to target, and then you have to actually do all those ETL tests. Okay. First one may not necessarily be the ETL test. It can be just data validation. Let's say you have a file and you want to actually check different kind of things like duplicate, nulls, or you want to check some, aggregation, etc. So the first one is not really related to ETL testing, but more of a data validation on a single file. Okay. Second one necessarily it talks about the ETL test. ETL test which you have the source and you have target. Now you have the millions of rows. Then how do you validate, right? Okay. Hope this is making sense and you are able to understand. Second one, okay. Third one is what's generally the size of the data warehousing project. Okay. So what is the size that we normally handle the size of the data warehousing projects. Third question. Fourth question, is the staging area are also called as landing zone and target TGT, guys. I have just written as the short form target on the same database. So this is saying that whether we have the staging and the target, um, is it generally the thing that staging in target, um, where we are actually going to load the finally, both of them are on the same database server or not, right? So this is the question basically. We'll see that. The fifth one, can we validate staging versus target? Why? Because do we really need to validate source versus staging, as staging will be copy of SRC. So what they are talking about here is, why do we need to really validate between source and target? Rather, can we do validation between staging and target itself? Because staging is actually just a replica of source, right? So this is what the assumption here, and this is the question, right? Can we do that? Or is it fair to do? Only we are not going to validate between source and target. Rather, we are just going to skip the source. We are actually going to staging and then validating between staging and target, right? So this is the question. Now, sixth one is, can you explain the ETL projects category? So how many different kind of ETL projects that we normally, handle in the ETL world, right? Or the data warehousing world. Now, seventh question is, when do we have source with flat file and database both? How data is extracted to staging, right? So this is talking about when we have both the source, staging, flat file is also there and database is also there, and both are actually as a source, and how actually we are extracting this source, flat file and database, both the sources, and making sure it is actually extracted into staging, right? So this is the question. Now, what is the negative testing scenario performed to check the data loading from flat file to database? So there are some scenario, negative scenario, positive scenarios and negative scenarios. So negative scenarios are very, very important because you need to make sure your system is gracefully handling those, exceptions or negative cases, right? All right, so these are the questions, guys, and we will try to, understand the question as well again. But I just wanted to make sure you understand, you see this question, and just expect this video is going to be a little longer because I don't want to compromise on the content, right? So that's the reason I think it's important that we cover every aspect of it. Okay, so let's go to one by one and then try to understand. All right, the first one, guys, if we have 20 GB of data inside an Excel file, how do you perform the data validation? Below options provided are by interviewer. So interviewer has actually given. So this is the question, right? So all this question that I'm saying is these are the real time questions asked in various companies, right, by the candidates, and these are the one which I have received on my channel over email, etc. That's why I'm saying. So these are the real time question, right? So they have even given you, the interviewer has given the option. Okay, first one, import data inside database. So let's say you have the Excel file, right? Now, if you want to actually do some sort of validation, let's say you want to do, you want to do the row count, you want to do, let's say you want to run certain aggregate function. Let's say there are some facts where you want to just run some aggregate function, for example, sum, average, mean, max, etc. Then the first option is basically, should we actually import data inside a database, and then on that database just run the SQL query and do the analysis, right? Perform the data validation. This is the first option, right? Now use Hive. Hive is another way how you actually pull this particular Excel file, or you can actually import this particular Excel file and do the SQL like commands you can run. And then the third one is any other approach, guys. So what I would say is basically, if you have if you have this kind of scenario where we have this amount of data, you want to do the validation, the best thing is use the Python pandas. And for Python pandas, I have done some videos. Just go and check in the Python series. You will actually find all those actually content that I have created. And Python pandas is a library which is given by the Python. It's amazing library, guys. I mean, this is very fast, right? So you don't need to actually make sure you have the different database you are importing. I mean, this is time consuming and then resource also, right? Many times it is not feasible to have the database where actually you can import the data, or you don't have the Hive system where you can actually pull the data. See, the whole purpose why we want to opt out all this solution is because the data size is huge. You need some sort of tool to do the validation, right? So the best thing that basically comes along with Python is the Python pandas, and Python pandas you can actually use to do all this validation, guys. Okay, and just do check my videos, I think, on pandas, which I am doing, still doing, I think, some of the videos, and there are some more to cover. And this is an amazing tool, guys. Okay, so this is the best thing that you can actually suggest them, and believe me, I think once you answer this kind of question, the interviewer will be, so much happy that you are actually able to think something which is um, which is really good, right? In terms of cost optimization, or in terms of feasibility and everything, right? So this is the first question we completed. Second question, guys, if you have millions of data rows records, how would you validate the ETL test? Okay. Now, this is generally asked in many interviews wherever you go for ETL testing. I think people will actually ask this kind of question, right? Because this is the real scenario where people will face, right? Because when you go for the pre-prod environment where we have the production like data, where we have the millions of record, I agree completely that you will not have this much of a scale of data in testing environment. But let's say you have to do this kind of performance testing, etc. Then it's important that you know how to validate, right? Even if you want to monitor the performance, you have to make sure you are processing this data, right? All right. So, guys, so there are two cases possible in this case. Okay. First one is source and targets are homogeneous, right? So when I say source and target, both are homogeneous, which means your source is a database on the same database server, and then target is also on the same database server. In that case, you can actually just simply run the minus query in Oracle and accept query. I think it is in MySQL, right? You can actually use this query, and you can actually get target minus source or source minus target. You will actually do those kind of validation, and you can do the checks whether we have anything missing or everything is fine. I have covered all those minus queries on different columns in previous videos. So if you want to know more about it, I think you should actually go to ETL testing folder and just check them out, right? This is the first case. Second case could be the source and target are heterogeneous, right? Which means source and target uh, are not on the same database, right? Maybe two different databases. Source is on Oracle, Sybase, and target is on the um, target is on the Sybase, right? In that case also you cannot actually run any SQL query. In that case we have to use, okay, so this is the one case. Second case is source is flat file and database is also flat file. This is again heterogeneous. Source is flat file, target is again flat file. Okay, target is maybe DB, yeah, not flat file. We have already covered that. So this is DB, let's say any DB, right? Sybase, Teradata, DB2, Oracle, anything. This is again heterogeneous, and this is also it. So these are the few cases how, right? So homogeneous is the only homogeneous systems are called when you have target source and target both on the same database server, right? In that case we are actually calling them homogeneous. Other than that, everything comes under heterogeneous, right? Heterogeneous systems. All right. So in these cases, what we actually do is in our companies, right? We normally have to, because this case is very unlikely. Okay, in the real project, this kind of cases are very unlikely. You will not find this kind of case because the whole purpose of ETL is to basically at the data warehousing project is to source the data from the different source systems. It can be XML, it can be flat file, it can be different databases or different files itself, right? And those are supposed to be actually heterogeneous, right? In that case we have actually some, we can actually within the company we normally develop a tool which where you can actually give the configuration to connect to which database, what table, and what query, etc. And then what it will do is basically it connect to, let's say, two databases. It will connect to both the databases in the background in the script, and it can do the compare, and then it can actually produce the result, right? So these are the tools that we have to actually build within the team, and this is responsibility of automation test engineer, right? Normally they do it, okay? So and same for the flat file as well, right? So where we you can give the path of the file as one source and then target maybe database. You actually configure everything and then just say run, okay? And then that particular query will get executed and the data from the Excel or CSV will be extracted, being compared, and then after that the result will be displayed, okay? So this nobody is going to ask you basically, right? That you just write it and show it to me. But generally these are the cases. Okay. Now another thing is millions of records. When we have, we can also um, do one thing. We can do the sampling always, right? Just to get some confidence as well. I know that it's not a right thing to do. And then at the same time, one validation that we have to make sure is that we have to actually check the performance, right? How much time the particular ETL job is taking to process end to end. That is one of the things that test actually we have to ensure. All right. This kind of test can generally happen in pre-production environment. The testing environment is not very suitable to do this because in testing environment you have the hardware and software. I mean, basically the environment capacity restrictions. You can't have if you want to actually check the performance, then you have to really uh, go and have the similar kind of environment where actually you benchmark the performance, like what is throughput, what is response time, and how much end-to-end processing time it is taking, etc. So this kind of huge data when we have, we also have to ensure that we actually do sanity checks in terms of performance testing. All right, some sort of things that we actually note it and make sure we get it reviewed with the project development manager or whoever, right? Okay, now the third question is what generally is the size of the data warehousing projects? Guys, so this is very open-ended question. Generally, the data warehousing projects, it completely depends on requirements, right? Because see, what is the purpose of your application, right? So let's say we have some projects. Okay, I'll just tell you some projects where we have the huge data feed coming, especially if you are going in the banking products, right? So you have the feed size itself in a couple of gigabytes. Okay, 10 or 20 gigabytes of data actually coming in each of this feed, right? Each of these files, right? Now what we normally do is we do not keep this kind of data for very long time, okay, because majority of the time the whole file we get, but we actually load the incremental data where we feel that the changes will be there, right? And also we do not store this kind of data for very long time, for example years and years, right? So again, right, so the database size in this case uh, will vary, right? Will not be like such a huge database because we are actually doing the housekeeping on monthly basis or weekly basis, correct? Because we don't want to keep the data for many years because those data are of no use, right? Maybe obsolete data, right? So that is some of the feeds, right? For example, there is another case where we have the projects where we have the feed size are very small, right? Very small, but basically we have to keep this data for very long time. For example, the healthcare domain, where generally the HIPAA and other regulators, regulators will actually mandate those companies, healthcare companies, to maintain the data for 10 years, right? Patient information, or maybe private, what we call is all those confidential data, right? Patient related data, personal identifying data should be kept for 10 years, etc. In that case, the feed size will not be huge, but then you have to keep it for very long time. In that case, the data size in the data warehouse can really be huge, right? So it again depends, right? There is no again simple answer, but there is something that the range that you can say that typically the storage size of any data warehouse could range between 100 GB to 1 TB, 2 TB, 10 TB, etc. Right? So this is the range basically, which is basically very open kind of range. I would not say this is like a very realistic one, but then this could be the range basically. Yeah. So just keep this in mind, and then you can always say that it depends on the requirement. All right. Now, the next question is the staging area or landing zone and the target are on the same database? Always no. So in ETL, this is not supposed to be always on the database. So staging, generally people say that when we have the target as a database, then staging will also be a database, right? So that is not true, guys, okay? Because the staging can be anything wherever you are storing. So it can be flat file, or it can be database. It can be part of the same database which is basically in your target, or it can be different database as well, right? It completely depends, right, on the projects and how the architecture of the project has been determined, right? But majority of the projects, staging area and target is purposed on the same database to improve the performance wherever possible, right? So this is the point, right? The generally people want to keep it on the same database so that our performance of end-to-end loading will be very uh, you know faster. Okay. Uh, this is the case, but as I said, it's not important that the staging and the target will be on the same database. It can be different, system as well. Now, we have some of the staging that we have actually mentioned here is the transient staging. Transient staging is the one where we are actually loading the data. After loading, I think we are removing that, erasing that, basically deleting the data from that particular staging, right? Or sometime what happens is uh, before the job runs, actually in the pre-session itself we delete the data from the staging and then load the fresh data. So we make sure every run will have the latest data in the staging, right? But there are another type of staging where we are actually persisting the data for the very long period of time, and this is called persistent staging area. Here we are not actually going to delete the staging area, rather than it will keep amending in that particular file. It can be file, or it can be your database table wherever we are writing, but it can store the data for very long period of time. The purpose of the holding the data in the staging area is basically when you want to do change data capture kind of activity, right? Where you want to make sure that the previous record which we have already got. So incremental load, isn't it, guys? So let's say I have 10 records which are actually in the previous run. We have loaded those 10 records, but this time out of 20 records, we got 10 records, the same records, right? In that case, in staging itself, I can have a lookup on my incoming stream and make sure that those 10 records are excluded and they are not actually carried forward from staging to target, right? They are actually getting dropped here itself. This is very helpful because then your overall performance of the ETL will be will boost, right? So that's the persistent staging, and this is the purpose, right? Generally, these are kept for when we have the huge amount of data are very huge feed file to load, right? In that case, we actually maintain the persistent staging area. All right. Now, as I said that the staging area or the landing zone, same thing, can be implemented in forms of tables or flat file, right? So both the options are actually open here. We can do that. All right. So hope this is going to give you some idea, right? And hopefully you'll be able to answer this kind of question. Now moving to the next one, can we validate staging versus target? Do we need do we really need to validate SRC or source versus target as a staging blue copy of source? So what I said basically, do we really need to have the validation between source and target here? Or we can actually have here, if you see here, right? So this is the source, this is target. Okay, from source to target. Okay, so something like this, guys, right? So you know that, right? So this is source, and then you have here staging, and then you have target. All right. So for example, what they are saying is, can we actually skip this source because this source when it is loaded, it will have always the staging. So staging will have everything after loading. So can we actually validate between these two? Because this is the same data that we are getting it here, right? So this is one of the assumption, guys, and which is not always true, I would say. Okay, why it is not always true? Because if you remember that when we were actually learning something about the ETL testing, sorry, Informatica. In Informatica, we have something called source qualifier, right? And source qualifier is the one which pull the data from the sources, right? So in that case, what happens? In the source qualifier, you can actually put some type of filters, right? And in that case, when you are actually putting some filters, and why we are doing the filters? Because let's say you want to extract the data from the source. Let's say you have many countries, okay? And out of those countries that you don't want the data from few of this country, right? However, the source will have all the countries, right? But if you don't want, if you want to extract only few set of countries, you can always go and put a filter condition there, right? And this filter can be actually uh, uh, applied when the ETL job runs and start extracting the data from the source itself, right? In that case, we are actually making sure we are actually filtering the unrequired data in the source itself. We are dropping it here only, right? In that case, what will happen? Let's say you are actually dropping it, and when the it is loaded in the target, there will be lesser records because we already extracted few things in the source qualifier, right? Source qualifier itself. In that case, the matching will be a problem because staging and source, then it is not matching, isn't it? Then you cannot really just put the same query here and get it validated. Okay, hope you understand it, right? Because here the records will be less. However, when you compare between source and target, then that will give you the right thing. Okay, because here you are going to put some sort of filter here, filter condition, and here without filter condition, the count will match. But here in this case, now we are already filtering, so we can't actually put filter here, right? So that is the thing, right? So in that case, uh, in this kind of special scenarios, right, where we can't actually do the validation between staging and target, but majority of the time wherever we see that we are actually extracting the data from the multiple sources, there we try to use the staging itself. Because let's say you have the 10 source systems and validating from each of the source system is not feasible, guys, right? Then we actually go directly into staging, and this is the one which is actually having all the aggregated data from multiple sources, and then it is very easy to validate between staging and target, right? So generally we validate it, but as I said that special cases where there are a lot of filtering happening, will not use that, right? Okay, so this is the hope I answered this question to you and you are able to understand it, right? Now let's go to the next question. Can you explain the ETL project categories? Right, guys. So these are the, this is very, very, I think open-ended question, because we don't have only few categories because there are so many, but I have actually captured here few of them which are most widely considered as the category of the ETL projects, right? But there could be many more, yeah. So, but these are the one most popular one. You can actually tell them these are the different project category, ETL projects category, right? The first one is the data migration project. So data migration project is basically the data movement from one to another platform. For example, you are actually upgrading the database, let's say Oracle 10G to some higher version 12C or whatever, right? So you want to upgrade that on the same database itself. What will happen, guys? In that case, actually, we have to migrate the entire data which is there from one version to another version, right? So this is the data migration project. This is within the same DB, and there is also another thing that you can also migrate the data from on-premise to cloud-based data warehouse as well, right? So let's say currently you have the database which your company is maintaining. Now you want to put all your data onto cloud-based AWS or other Azure, right? So wherever you want to put your data on the cloud, you can actually do this data migration project. So those are the projects which comes under data migration projects. Okay, this is purely the data migration, data related things. That's why it is called data migration projects. Okay. Now, cloud migration projects. So cloud migration project is basically, if you might be thinking that it is very similar, but it is similar, but along in the cloud migration, what we do not only migrate the data, we also migrate the ETL processes, right? So going forward, all the processes will actually run in on the cloud, because here we are actually migrating only data, right? But here what we are migrating is we are actually uh, migrating along with the data the ETL jobs as well, because this is my going to be my future platform. Okay, all right. Now the third one is data warehousing projects, which is very, very, very famous, and the whole purpose of ETL has evolved on this basis itself, right? Where we have to build the data warehousing projects for a strategic decision making, right? For the organization, so that they can take the decision, they can do the analysis of the data, they can forecast the growth, etc. of the companies, right? So this is the core basically purpose of the data warehousing or the ETL, right? ETL uh, systems or ETL processes. But then later a point of time, these are also few of the other streams that has been evolved as part of ETL projects category, right? So here we use all these data warehousing concepts like fact, dimensional, slowly changing dimension, fast changing dimensions, and all those concepts we are actually using the data warehousing project. So this is the one, right? Now the fourth one is the data integration projects. So guys, what is data integration project? So data integration is basically integrating, all right, data integration. So what we do normally here is um, we actually gather the data from the multiple sources and put into one unified view, right? This is as simple as that. Okay, we do not actually store the whole historical data here. However, data warehousing project is also doing the same integration data, right? But then here we actually store the historical data, right? Because we want to do we want to do the analysis over the period of years or many years. We want to data for many years, right, to do the analysis. However, in this case, we just want to see the view of the integrated data from multiple view. Maybe based on this current data, we want to actually do some sort of you know, we can take some, the management can take certain calls, right? But this need not be the historical data, guys. This is the only difference between this, right? So, and data warehousing is full-fledged historical, and this is having a bigger purpose, obviously, right? Now, the last one is the real-time ETL projects, when the data is streamed near like real time, near real time, like social media feeds, etc. Right? So those are the ETL jobs, right? For example, you have the Facebook. In Facebook, what is happening? We are actually getting the data from multiple sources, and actually it is getting streamed on very real time basis, right? So this is the place where also the ETL comes into picture, because you have to process the entire thing, right? Entire thing has to be processed. So social media is the best um, example of the real-time ETL projects, okay, where the jobs are actually continuously running, okay. All right, so these are the different ETL projects, guys. If you still want some more understanding, if you want to know some, you have questions, just do let me know on the comment. I'll be able to help you guys, okay. Now let's go to the next one. When we have the source as flat file and database, how the data is extracted in staging, right? So what they are actually talking about is, when we have the source and the source system, basically we have both, right? So flat file and database together is becoming a source, and then how actually it is going to extract into staging area, because then you have the pipeline in Informatica, right? So in Informatica we can actually use the joiner transformation, right? And in other ETL tool also, I think there should be some joiner transformation, where you can actually combine the data from multiple heterogeneous systems, and then that based on that joining condition, actually you can process the data, right, in staging, and then the staging can take it forward to the next level wherever it is required, right? So this is the actually question, right? Because they wanted to know that, if we have the staging data, we have the different sources, heterogeneous sources, how you will take it forward. So this is the right thing, right? So the joiner transformation we can use. However, when we have the homogeneous source systems, for example, the same database server, different tables and all, then actually the combining of this data can directly be done in the source qualifier of your SQL, right? Uh, a SQL query, that's you can actually use it, right? So for heterogeneous, we have to use the joiner to join the data from different systems. For homogeneous, we can do the joining, we can perform the joining in the source qualifier itself, okay? In Informatica. This is very specifically for Informatica, guys. So maybe it might vary into other tool. There might be different names, but I'm sure that this kind of feature is available in everywhere, right? Now, the next one, guys, is what are the negative testing scenario performed to check the data loading from flat file to database? This is generally asked by interviewer very frequently, because people want to know, like, what do you think, right? Do you really know that how in real time the system behaves, right? So they want to check all this kind of negative scenario, and they want to ensure that you understand this kind of negative scenario so that you can test the system, which can actually work fine, right? So negative testing is intended to check if the system can gracefully handle the unexpected error. So what are those unexpected errors, guys? So let's say you are running the ATL job. Now you do not file this particular, do not find the file, because your source is going to be filed, right? You find that we do not have that particular file available on the source location, or let's say there is delay in that file delivery from the upstream itself, right? Upstream is the place from where the ETL will pick up the file. It is generally a location or the directory uh, where actually the ETL will go and it will pick up the file. If file is not available, then it should be able to give you the correct message, correct error message, right? That the file is not available, the job is failing, please go and check something meaningful, right? So this kind of test we have to do and make sure that we are actually getting the meaningful message out of this, right? So in this kind of negative scenarios, what we have to do, we actually have to go and the path where you have actually put the file, you just delete that file and then run the job and see that how it happens, right? Same thing, blank or empty file. So you have a file, file name is there, but there is nothing, no data in the file. So how actually the system is supposed to behave for the blank file as well, right? So this is also uh, the negative scenario that you have to check. Now the file format mismatch. So let's say you have the file which is having which is a comma separated file. Let's say CSV file which is having three fields. Okay, student ID, student name, and what else you say, city or college, something like that, right? What you do is basically in student ID you put name, and then student name you put the ID, and then run this particular job. Okay, and then see that this is supposed to fail and give the right message that the file format that ETL job is expecting is not in the right format. Okay, something like that. It should actually give you error message. Okay. Now the data type mismatch, guys. So this is very similar, right? File format mismatch is something that the very similar to that. Data type mismatch is also something like that only, right? Because when your ETL job is expecting the file to have the uh, integer data, and you are actually supplying the character data or the string data into that particular field, right? And then there will be a data mismatch and appropriate error message should be displayed. Okay. Sorry, guys. Now, primary key duplicacy, not delicacy, guys. Okay. Duplicacy. All right. Checks. So what we do is normally, let's say I have a file which is actually containing employees data, for example, right? And then employee ID is one of the column which is primary key in my target database. Target is database here, right? You see. And then in flat file, let's say I am actually sending two records with the same employee ID. What should happen now? So it should actually get processed, right? But it should reject that particular, it should actually take one record, the very first record with the same ID, and the second time when it is actually processing, it should actually reject it, right? And then up to appropriate warning message should be displayed or should be actually captured in the log, right? And what may be the requirement as well, right? It you would like to fail the job as well, right? You might so that again depends on what is the business scenario. If you want to make sure that you fail the job when you find duplicate, or if you just don't want to fail it but you want to only load only once, anyways it will allow only once on the database level, because in database if you are actually defining key as a primary key, it will never ever allow duplicate loading, right? So this kind of checks that you have to make sure, right, that you are actually performing. Okay. Now data volume and performance test. This very very important, right? Now how do you perform normally this kind of scenarios? Data volume, because ETL testing, we have the huge amount of data to load into data warehouse, and we have to make sure that we are actually able to process this kind of data, this volume of the data, scale of the data in the required SLA. Okay, so you normally do this kind of testing in pre-prod environment where we have the production like environment and you have the huge file or huge data available for you, the production data, mass data, that you can actually run it, right? So these are the few things, okay, that you can do as part of negative testing. And believe me, if you are actually telling this kind of things, and then interviewer will be super impressed with you. Okay. All right. So I covered all of this question, and I think this is very important for anybody. And I believe that you can just keep this particular link handy with you wherever you go, whenever you have the next interviews. You just revise it, guys, once, right? and these will really be helpful for this answering this kind of question. Okay. All right. So again, please like and subscribe and send your comments out when you want anything else from me. You want me to answer some question, and don't forget to send me the questions because your questions are, motivation to me, and I always capture your questions and I make sure I do a video on that so that it can benefit to larger audience, guys. Okay. So that's all for this video, and I'll see you soon with the next video. Until then, happy learning. God bless you and bye.